you ever noticed how quickly a small moment can steal your entire peace? One message, one comment, one tone of voice, and suddenly your heartbeat rises, your mind begins to race, and a simple moment becomes an emotional storm. You didn't plan it, you didn't want it, but your reaction took over. Because in that exact second, you weren't responding to life, you were reacting to it. And that one reaction changed everything. We live in a world where everything demands a quick response. Someone ignores your text, you react. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you react. Someone disrespects you, you react instantly. It's as if the world has trained us to feel threatened by everything. We have become masters of reacting, but strangers to staying still. Yet the truth is, your greatest strength is not your loudest reaction, but your quietest non-reaction. Your power does not live in your ability to fight back, but in your ability to remain centered when the world tries to pull you off balance. And no one understood this truth better than the man who walked the earth more than 2,500 years ago, Gautama Buddha. His entire life, from a prince surrounded by luxury, to a seeker walking alone through forests, to the enlightened one teaching under the shade of banyan trees, was a journey into the deepest corners of the human mind. He saw something we often forget, that peace, real, unshakable, unbreakable peace, does not come from controlling the world, but from controlling our reaction to it. But how? How do we become the kind of person who stays calm while others lose themselves? Who thinks before responding? Who chooses peace even when provoked? To understand this, we must go back to a simple story, a moment that reveals the true power of not reacting. A story that begins with a man filled with anger, a man who approached Buddha not with questions, but with insults. And yet, what Buddha did next became one of the greatest emotional lessons in history.
The sun hung gently over the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the dusty ground where Buddha sat peacefully, surrounded by villagers who came seeking guidance. Birds chirped softly, a gentle breeze carried the scent of sandalwood, and everything in that moment felt effortlessly calm. Until a man arrived. He walked with force, each step heavy, each breath burning with anger. His fists were clenched, his eyes filled with frustration, and resentment poured from him like a heat from a fire. Without any greeting, without any respect, he stood before Buddha and unleashed his rage. "You are a fraud. You mislead people with your words. You know nothing." He insulted Buddha's wisdom, his appearance, his teachings, his very existence. The crowd gasped. Some felt angry, some felt protective, some waited to see what the enlightened one would do. But Buddha did not move. Not a muscle, not a breath out of place. He sat as still as a mountain, calm, unshaken, untouched by the man's fire. The man shouted again, louder this time, his face red, his voice trembling with intensity, as if he wanted to transfer every drop of his anger onto Buddha. And still, Buddha remained silent. Not because he was weak, not because he was scared, but because he was free. Free from the trap that anger tries to pull every human into. When the man finally ran out of breath, when his voice cracked and his energy faltered, Buddha looked at him with eyes softer than moonlight, and he asked a simple question. If a person brings you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The man, confused and exhausted, replied, "It stays with the one who brought it." Buddha smiled. "Exactly. You have brought me anger, but I do not accept it. It remains with you." Silence fell over the crowd. The man felt something shift inside him. His anger, which moments before felt justified, suddenly felt heavy, pointless, self-destructive. Because he realized his insults did not touch Buddha, they only poisoned him. Buddha continued, his voice gentle and steady. When someone speaks with anger, it is their pain speaking. If I react, I take on their suffering. But if I do not react, the pain remains with them, and eventually they are forced to face it. The man's eyes softened. His shoulders dropped. The storm within him slowly quieted. For the first time in his life, someone had not returned his anger. Someone had refused to drink the poison he tried to offer. And in that mirror of non-reaction, he saw himself clearly. He bowed down at Buddha's feet, tears filling his eyes, not from shame, but from awakening. Because he realized this truth, when you react to anger, you become a slave to the one who provoked you. But when you do not react, you rise above them and gain control over yourself. Buddha looked around at his followers and said, "A person who cannot control their reaction cannot control their life. But a person who can stay still in the face of insult, in the face of provocation, in the face of emotion, such a person is truly free." This story teaches us a timeless lesson. Other people's words only have power if you accept them. Their anger only harms you if you let it enter your heart. Non-reaction is not weakness. It is mastery. It is intelligence. It is emotional freedom. And this is where the journey begins. Anger, fear, pain, frustration. These emotions rise inside us like flames, quiet at first, but then growing, spreading, devouring everything in their path. A single spark, a single moment, a single word can ignite a wildfire within the human heart. But here is the truth most people never realize. Emotions are not the problem. Reacting to them is. Imagine a forest. It stands tall, ancient, peaceful. Then one careless spark falls and the entire landscape burns, turning life into ashes. That is what happens when we let our emotions take control. The spark is small, a rude comment, a stressful moment, an unexpected challenge, but the fire becomes massive because we feed it with our reaction. Buddha taught that emotions are like passing storms. They come, they thunder, they pour rain, but they always, always pass. Yet humans fear storms. We try to fight them. We try to stop them. We try to run from them. And in that struggle, we create more suffering. Buddha once told his disciples, "Your anger is like a burning torch. You may try to throw it at someone, but in the end, you burn your own hands." Think about that. How many times have you burned yourself trying to hurt someone back, trying to prove a point, trying to win an argument?
trying to defend your ego? How many times have you walked away feeling exhausted because your own reaction took more energy than the original problem? The fire was never outside, it was always inside. Now imagine a mountain, high, tall, unmoving. Storms pass over it, winds hit it, lightning strikes it, but the mountain remains grounded. Buddha taught us to become that mountain, to let emotions pass around us instead of through us. He said, when the mind is calm, the whole world becomes calm. When you are steady on the inside, no one can shake you on the outside. Your environment can try to provoke you. People can try to trigger you. Situations can try to overwhelm you. But if you refuse to feed the fire dies. The world tells us to react immediately, but wisdom tells us to pause, to breathe, to see clearly. For in the space between emotion and reaction, your entire life can change. To know this, we must understand why the mind reacts the way it does, why the inner fire rises automatically, why we feel threatened even when we aren't. And for that, we must journey deeper into the nature of the human mind.
Why do we react so quickly? Why does a single moment trigger an entire storm within us? The answer lies in a simple truth. Your mind has been conditioned long before you learned to control it. From childhood, every experience, every fear, every memory, every wound has programmed your emotional reactions. A harsh tone from someone today reminds your mind of an old pain. A disrespectful gesture awakens an old insecurity. A stressful situation unlocks a long-forgotten fear. The reaction you give today is often the echo of an emotion from years ago. Buddha understood this deeply. He said, "Nothing can harm you more than your own thoughts." Not because thoughts are dangerous, but because our reaction to them is uncontrolled. The mind reacts quickly because it was built for survival. Long ago, humans needed to respond instantly to danger, a wild animal, a threat, a sudden risk. This instinct still lives in us, except today, the danger isn't a tiger. It's a rude message, an ignored call, a rejection, a disagreement, a judgmental stare. Your mind doesn't know the difference. It reacts to emotional discomfort as if your life is in danger. This is why a small issue feels big, why a few words hurt deeply, why you sometimes explode over something insignificant. Your mind is not trying to hurt you, it is trying to protect you, but it does so blindly. Buddha compared the mind to a wild horse, powerful, energetic, but without direction. It runs, jumps, reacts, panics, and drags you with it. But a trained mind is like a calm elephant, slow, steady, wise, moving only with intention. Buddha taught his followers to observe the mind, not obey it. To watch their thoughts, not become them. To feel emotions, but not drown in them. He said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." This is not just a spiritual idea. Modern science agrees. Neurologists explain that the brain follows habit loops. If you react with anger once,
your mind becomes more likely to react with anger again. If you react with fear once, your mind becomes conditioned to choose fear again. The more you react, the stronger the reaction becomes. It becomes automatic, a reflex, rather than a choice. But here is the beautiful part. If the mind can be conditioned to react, it can also be trained not to react. This is what Buddha discovered. This is what he taught, that between emotion and reaction lies a small space, a space of choice, a space of awareness, a space where your true power lives. Most people never reach this space because they live on autopilot. They let old wounds make new decisions. But you are here to break that pattern, to awaken the awareness hidden beneath your emotions. Because once you understand the mind, you no longer fear your emotions. You no longer react blindly. You begin to see clearly, to act consciously, to live freely. And that is where emotional mastery truly begins.
There's a teaching of Buddha that explains human suffering in a way so simple, yet so transformative, that even today, it is considered one of the most powerful lessons in emotional control. Buddha told his disciples that in life, every human will be struck by two arrows. The first arrow is unavoidable. It is the pain life brings, a loss, a failure, a disrespect, a disappointment, an unexpected situation. This first arrow is a part of being human. Everyone feels it. But the second arrow is the one we shoot at ourselves. The second arrow is our reaction, the anger, the rumination, the fear, the overthinking, the resentment, the emotional chaos we create inside ourselves. Buddha asked, which arrow causes greater pain? The disciples thought for a moment, then they answered, the second arrow. Buddha smiled, for that was the truth he wanted them to see. The first arrow is simply life, but the second arrow is our mind attacking us. Imagine someone says something hurtful. That is the first arrow, a moment of pain. Then your mind begins. How dare they say that to me? Why does this always happen to me? I'm so stupid for letting this affect me. I should have said this. I should have done that. You replay the moment again and again, reliving the pain, making it bigger, making it heavier. The original hurt becomes multiplied through your own thoughts. Buddha explained that you cannot always avoid the first arrow, but you can learn to stop the second arrow from ever being fired. He reminded his followers that reacting emotionally is like choosing to suffer twice. You cannot control what happens, but you can control how much power it has over you. You can choose to feel the first arrow, the moment of discomfort, and let it pass. Or you can choose to fire the second arrow, turning a small injury into a deep wound that lasts for years. The lesson is simple. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And when you master the art of not reacting, the second arrow never reaches you.
There is another story often told in monasteries, a story of anger, ego, and the power of silence. In a quiet village, there lived a monk known for his serenity. He walked slowly, spoke gently,
and carried an aura of deep peace. People admired him, but his calmness also irritated some, for his composure reminded them of the turmoil they carried inside. One day, a man filled with jealousy decided to test the monk. He approached him in the middle of the marketplace, where everyone could witness what was about to unfold. The man shouted, "You pretend to be peaceful, but you are nothing. Your silence is arrogance. Your calmness is a disguise." The villagers stopped what they were doing. All eyes turned toward the monk. They expected him to defend himself, to explain, to argue back, to prove his innocence. But the monk simply stood there. He listened, and he remained silent. The man grew more aggressive. He stepped closer, his insults sharper, his voice louder. Still, the monk said nothing. The man grew frustrated, angry that his words had no effect. He felt as if he was punching the air, fighting a battle with no opponent. Finally, exhausted and humiliated by his own behavior, he stopped shouting. His voice cracked, and the anger that once felt powerful now felt embarrassing. The monk looked at him with gentle eyes and said, "My friend, if someone brings you a gift and you do not take it, it remains theirs. And today, I choose not to accept your anger." Those words struck the man harder than any argument ever could. The monk continued, "No person can disturb another's peace. Only the disturbed can disturb themselves. You offered me anger, but I offer you silence. Not because I am superior, but because I refuse to become your mirror." The man lowered his head. For the first time, he felt the weight of his actions. He realized that the monk's silence was not weakness, but strength, a strength he did not yet possess. The villagers whispered among themselves, astonished at how a single moment of silence could dissolve a storm. The monk walked away quietly, showing everyone watching that day a powerful truth. Anger needs a reaction to survive. Without your participation, it burns itself out. Silence, when used with wisdom, is not running away, it is rising above. It is choosing peace over ego, understanding over argument, strength over impulse. This is the power of not reacting. This is the strength of a mind disciplined in awareness.
There is a moment inside every human experience that most people never notice. A moment so small, so quiet, that it feels invisible. Yet this moment holds the key to emotional mastery. It is the space between what you feel and what you do. Most people never see this space. Their emotions rise, and their reaction follows instantly, like lightning striking right after thunder. Someone provokes them, and they explode. Someone disappoints them, and they collapse inside. Someone challenges them, and they react without thinking. But Buddha taught that freedom lies in one simple ability: to pause, to become aware of the feeling before acting on it. He explained that emotions are like waves. They rise, crest, and pass. But we get swept away because we jump into the wave instead of letting it rise and fall on its own. When anger appears, you do not have to become that anger. When fear arises, you do not have to follow where it leads. When insecurity whispers, you do not need to obey. There is space, a moment of choice, a moment where you can breathe, observe, and decide. Imagine holding a glass of muddy water. If you shake it, the water becomes clouded and impossible to see through. But if you leave it still, the dirt settles and the water becomes clear again. The mind works the same way. If you react immediately, you shake the glass. You make everything blurry, confusing, overwhelming. But if you pause, if you sit still, even for a few seconds, clarity returns, understanding appears, perspective becomes visible. Buddha described this pause as the doorway to wisdom. He said, "With every emotion, there is a choice. Without awareness, it becomes reaction. With awareness, it becomes understanding." When you master this space, you stop being controlled by the world. You stop letting situations dictate your peace. You stop being a prisoner of your own impulses. Instead, you become deliberate. You become thoughtful. You become powerful. Because true strength is not reacting quickly, it is reacting wisely. And that wisdom lives in the space you create between emotion and reaction.
There is a simple story told in many Buddhist monasteries, a story so ordinary that you might overlook it, yet its meaning holds the essence of emotional control. One day, a young monk approached his teacher. He said, "Master, I get angry too quickly. When something happens, I react before I even realize it. How do I stop this?" The master did not answer. Instead, he handed the young monk a small pot filled with water and asked him to place it over a fire. The monk obeyed. He sat beside the pot and watched the water gradually heat. As moments passed, small bubbles appeared. The water trembled, shivered, and then began to boil. The master asked, "What caused the water to boil?" The young monk replied, "The fire beneath it." The master nodded. Then he removed the pot from the fire and waited. Slowly, the boiling stopped. The water calmed. The bubbles disappeared. The master asked again, "What caused the water to cool?" The monk said, "Removing it from the fire." The master looked into the monk's eyes and said, "Your anger is the boiling water. Your reactions are the bubbles. The fire is the situation, the words, the person, or the event that triggers you." He continued, "When the fire is beneath you, your emotions will boil. Your mind will heat. You will overflow." The young monk listened carefully. The master added, "But if you learn to remove the pot from the fire, to step away, to breathe, to pause, your mind will cool on its own." He concluded, "You do not control the fire of life, but you control whether you place your pot over it." The young monk suddenly understood. He realized that the problem was never the situation itself. The problem was how quickly he placed himself over the flames without awareness. The master continued, "When you feel anger rising, step back. Not forever, but for a moment. Give your mind a chance to cool. If you respond while boiling, you will spill over and burn yourself and others." The simplicity of the lesson struck the young monk deeply. He saw that emotional control is not about suppressing feelings, but about managing the heat that triggers them. A moment of pause can prevent a lifetime of regret. And from that day on, he learned to recognize the heat inside him and remove himself from the fire before his emotions reached a boil.
This is the essence of emotional mastery. You become aware of the heat rising, and instead of reacting, you give yourself space to cool. You choose clarity over impulse, wisdom over reaction, peace over fire.
There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that their greatest enemy was never the world outside, but the storm inside. And this is where the Buddha's deepest teaching becomes clear. Between every emotion and every action, there is a space, a brief, invisible space that most people never notice. A moment so small that it's easy to miss, but powerful enough to change the entire direction of your life. When anger rises, there is a space. When fear tightens your chest, there is a space. When someone criticizes you, embarrasses you, or disrespects you, there is a space. And in that small space lives your true power. Most people live on impulse. Something happens, they react instantly. A harsh word, and they respond with bitterness. A small mistake, and they panic or blame. A disagreement, and they explode without thinking. But Buddha taught that wisdom begins the moment you become aware of that space. Because once you notice it, you can widen it. And when you widen it, you take control of your emotional world. Imagine someone insults you. Your body wants to react. Your heart speeds up, your mind prepares a comeback, but instead you pause. Just for one breath, just long enough to see your emotion, not obey it. And suddenly, the emotion loses its power. Because the truth is, emotions are not commands. They are suggestions, signals, visitors. Anger comes, and it will go. Sadness comes, and it will go. Irritation comes, and it will go. You are not meant to give every emotion a reaction. You are meant to give it awareness. That is the difference between living unconsciously and living consciously. That is the difference between reacting and responding. And once you learn to master this space, you no longer let the world control you. You control how you experience the world. This is the moment when your emotional life begins to transform.
The Buddha once said, "Rule your mind, or it will rule you." And in this chapter, we see what that truly means. To react is to be controlled. To respond is to take control. When someone speaks harshly to you, your first instinct might be to defend, attack, or shut down. That's reaction, automatic, unconscious, mechanical. But a response is different. A response comes from clarity, not impulse, from awareness, not ego, from strength, not fear. Responding means you step back, not to run away, but to see properly. You observe what is happening. You understand your emotion. You understand the other person's emotion. And then you choose your action. Not out of rage, not out of insecurity, not out of panic, but out of wisdom. This is what true emotional mastery looks like. When you react, you are a prisoner of your emotions. When you respond, you are the master of them. Think of a calm river. Even when rocks are thrown into it, it settles back into stillness. The rocks cannot control the river. It absorbs them, understands them, and becomes calm again. Your mind can be that river. Someone criticizes you? Respond with stability, not insecurity. Someone disagrees with you? Respond with curiosity, not defensiveness. Someone tries to provoke you. Respond with calmness, not anger. This does not make you weak. It makes you powerful, because the strongest person is not the one who can shout the loudest, but the one who can remain centered even when the world is shouting. And slowly, you realize something profound. No one can control you anymore. Not their words, not their behavior, not their moods, because you have learned the rarest skill in the world, the power of not reacting.
There comes a time on the path of inner growth when you finally understand the truth Buddha tried to teach the world, that emotional freedom is not the absence of emotions. It is the ability to feel them fully without being owned by them. You stop chasing control over the world, and instead, you begin cultivating control over yourself. You stop trying to change people, and instead, you begin changing the way you rise above their behavior. You stop wasting energy fighting situations, and instead, you focus on mastering your responses to them. This is the highest form of power. Because when you no longer react blindly to everything around you, you begin to see life with a fresh clarity. You begin to choose peace over chaos, presence over panic, and understanding over judgment. You begin to notice that most conflicts were never worth your energy. Most arguments were never worth your time. Most provocations were nothing more than tests of your inner stability. And every time you choose calmness over anger, every time you choose reflection over impulse, every time you choose patience over emotional chaos, you strengthen a part of yourself that most people never discover. This is emotional evolution. This is the transformation Buddha envisioned, a mind so steady that nothing can shake it, a heart so aware that nothing can poison it, and a spirit so grounded that no circumstance can steal its peace. And slowly, you realize something profound. You are no longer reacting to life. You are directing it. You are no longer a product of the storm. You are the one who walks through it untouched. You are no longer controlled by emotions. You are guided by wisdom. This is the freedom you have been seeking. This is the power of not reacting.
As we come to the end of this story, remember one thing. Emotional mastery is not a destination. It is a practice, a daily choice, a lifelong journey. There will still be moments when anger rises, when stress tightens your breath, when confusion clouds your mind. There will be times when people misunderstand you, provoke you, or test your patience. But now, you carry something extraordinary, the awareness that you have a choice. You can pause, you can breathe, you can observe, and then you can respond, not react. This one shift can transform your relationships, your decisions, your mental peace, and the direction of your life. You are capable of becoming calm in chaos. You are capable of becoming centered in conflict. You are capable of living with a mind that does not break when life becomes heavy, but becomes even more wise, more compassionate, and more powerful. The power of not reacting is already within you. You have felt it. You have understood it. And now, it's time to live it. Carry this wisdom with you into every moment, every conversation, every challenge, and watch how your world transforms. Not because everything outside becomes easier, but because everything inside becomes stronger. Your journey toward emotional freedom begins now.